that regarding Ramon? Will he get some?
There
Will
we
he get
go.
a response?
There it's okay. Good morning, guys. So, Nick, you were saying you watched the 5-minute video. What did you want to say?
I just wondered if you got any responses, any further responses yet? Any reaction?
No. Best response came from the ChatGPT 4, which was I did not use an EPMC bot. It took a look at all the research and looked at the main method and validated the form of peer review. What I want to talk about is why being a podcaster, having a following, having a cult dedicated to you like Ben does, doesn't matter in science. I mean, it matters to one degree. My girlfriend asked me, she said, "Why do you get so worked up and care?" I said, "Well, there's a guy named Dr. Pierre-Marie Robitaille who improved the MRI. And he did a series of experiments that showed that Kirchhoff's black body radiation law was invalid. And the reason it was invalid was that Kirchhoff, despite his voltage law, had never actually done the experiment. He didn't have the capability of doing the experiment back in the 1800s. So it was mathematics. It was promoted as a law. And the thing is that these things do add up to invention and to, either improving something, improving the world, or not improving the world. And all he did was use thermal cameras and live footage and showed that Kirchhoff's black body radiation law was incorrect. And it does matter. I mean, obviously, Atlantis is dead and gone. So it doesn't really matter in terms of nobody's about to find Atlantis and invent new technologies or something like that. But the Reshat Formation is far more interesting than a proposed location for Atlantis, which actually is not a proposable location for Atlantis. The Reshat Formation is one of the best electrogeology scars from the catastrophic era that we have out there. Obviously, here in Kentucky, we have a Palladian Thunderbolt strike site with 56 craters and an octagon. But in terms of like a beam that could readily explain the formation of the Sahara Desert, etc., the size of the Reshat, the obvious transmutation that had happened there, it's one of the most important potential sites. Shiprock is another really potential important site. So that's where it matters. It also matters the culture of science. If we are going to attack the standard model in the mainstream, in the alt stream, we have to have some kind of standards. We have to follow a Baconian Socratic method of inquiry. We have to stick to an edge of something. Otherwise, we're just as bad. So, I was being tongue in cheek when I said if people want the system to just lie to them, why don't they just go back to the mainstream? Because Jimmy does not do science. He's an ex-Marine, jarhead, and I say that with respect because my brother's a jarhead too. But my brother's in cybersecurity, and he knows far more about science than Jimmy does. This guy is afraid to lose his fame. That's why he deletes comments. And he wants to court Ben Davidson into getting onto his show on Suspicious Observers. Ben Davidson's not a scientist. He's a lawyer. And he's done some extremely shisty things. And it's one of the cringiest things was when he tried to take over the Thunderbolts, tried to twist Dave Talbot into agreeing that he was the successor live on camera during the Thunderbolts conference. I was watching that live. Rick was watching it live. It was very, very cringy and inappropriate. It didn't work, obviously. And then he turned his back on the Thunderbolts and showed his true colors, went after them, used his cult to go after them, to go after also, I don't know, Mainware or Mainfaring. I don't remember the name of the daggone people. And I don't care because he wasn't about facts. And the things that he has done that are interesting, whether they are Earth spots or Star Water, he got those ideas most likely from better men that he was associating with that were small time. And these kinds of frauds, they don't have to steal your paycheck in order to be frauds. They just have to lie purposely, and it's a real problem. One of my favorite lines from Total Recall is, "You are what you do, Mr. Quaid." It's not about what your intent is. And I hope that this message, that this channel, this episode reaches Jimmy. It doesn't matter what your intention is if the outcome is that you do the same thing as that which you are criticizing in the mainstream, is that you lie and cover up because you just want to be famous, then you're a charlatan. And you're also a coward because you've been called out. You've been called out. I called you out live on your chat, and I told you that you'd been scientifically debunked, and you got this worried look on your face. And I could find the daggone video if I felt like, and you could see it in the chat. And all you can say is, no, it hasn't been scientifically debunked. Yes, it actually has. And I find it frustrating that we live in this age of people can just say whatever the fuck they want, and they think that there's no repercussions. Someone in his comments on this latest video that he did said, "I hate to be the guy fact-checking you, but Danica Patrick didn't win the Indy 500." Well, why would you hate to be the one fact-checking him? If he's wrong, he's wrong. And another person said that they feel the void inside the Great Pyramid is a distraction. Now, what part of this engineered vehicle is a distraction? Every part of an engineered machine is purposeful. The void is just as important as the pipes underneath for flushing the chemicals out of the power plant. All of it is important. And people who don't look into this information very deeply, and they certainly don't read, like they don't read Chris Dunn's books, so they can become more educated, they presume upon a small amount of background in science and education that maybe they got from high school, like Jimmy, and then proceed to go forward, and they're making mud of everything. And there are men who gave their entire lives throughout the 20th century to wake up the world. Velikovsky, Hal Narp, Dave Talbot, Walt Thornhill, Ralph Jurgens, Bostic. All these people gave everything to give up the truth and to go against the lies of the relativists. It's not that relativity, but relativity based on gravity, rather than based on what Poincaré had been working on. And I find it incredibly frustrating. And I think it's important that we at the Pulse stand up for what's right. We stood up to Terrence Howard's fraudulent lies, his theft of Buddy's work and of other people's work, and then him saying very irresponsible things like one times one is two. And I intend to continue to stand up to lies, whether they come from the alt stream or the mainstream. If we only spend time attacking the mainstream, well, there's plenty there. CIA, NASA, they leave plenty of area to criticize. But there are also these rising stars, and these stars, they're not even in the top 1,000 of people who know what they're talking about. And one thing I love about the Thunderbolts is that they held those conferences. If you go and you look at the quality of guests that they had at their speeches, these are top men. They are award-winning professors and professor emeriti from throughout the world. And they're pointing at a science that is different. And it's not different because it's wrong. It's different because it came from the original strain of the cosmology from Gilbert. And I just wanted to make that point, and also to make the point about that the scientific method, it doesn't matter how famous you are. But unfortunately, in this modern culture, it does matter if we stand up to lies and charlatans and frauds. And if they're too cowardly to defend their stuff in public, I'll tell you right now, I'll debate Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, Ben Davidson, Jimmy Corsetti, and Zamora all together on the same stage or on Joe Rogan podcast any day of the week with my eyes closed and my hands tied behind me, and I'll still win. And I just want to make that known too. Now I've said my piece, so we can continue the episode now more agreeably. We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. World events, obviously, the news of the day. Hunter Biden, that human slave making crackhead piece of shit, got a pardon from his daddy, the big guy. And then there's whatever else you guys would like to maybe talk about. You can follow up on what I've said if you'd like. I've said my piece.
I'd like to follow up on what you just said, Ramon. It's becoming increasingly clear to me that truth in science is becoming less and less important. From the respect that it seems to be purely agenda which is being proposed, and it might be a series of misinformation. But as long as it fits this, the main scientific drift, they want an atheistic evolutionary kind of model of the world, random collisions, random genetic modifications. Everything's kind of has got to fit that kind of Darwinian model. And it is a form of scientism. The truth is becoming less and less important to all these people. In fact, it's probably better that the truth doesn't come out, because that means they can keep a job. And as far as the consensus, these creators who all seem to be in a kind of a little huddle on Gaia TV. I think they're basically just trying to keep the media positions, because of course there's plenty of money coming in the coffers, and I think they'll just do anything to, misinformation's as good as anything else for them. Any publicity is good publicity, basically. So that's my only point.
Yeah, more than even the standard model, most of them on Gaia TV don't agree with each other. They don't have the same hypothesis. They don't have the same starting position. They don't have the same ending position. Most of them are using some kind of pseudoscience that can't be empirically validated. And they're worse than the standard model. And but they all are wink, wink. Let's all, as long as we attack the mainstream, all these people who are out there trying to be seekers, they don't know how to be seekers, but they're trying to be seekers. They're getting, some of them are huffing up the mystery fume, but a lot of them are trying to seek. And the saddest thing is these people are being built for millions of dollars a year. Hundreds of millions of dollars a year are going into alt stream science. And we've seen what they'll create zero point energy machines and stuff. They're not the real deal. Attach batteries just to get YouTube likes, just to get shares, just to get subs. It won't be long before these alt streamers are using Twitch. They're already using Patreon. They'll be using Twitch to get subs from ignorant children who don't know any better, and they will fill their heads with all sorts of nonsense, and they'll get paid for it. And what started off maybe innocently, maybe Jimmy started off innocently with his Bright Insight channel. I like to think that. I happen to like his research into the Black Rock and how they're holding back archaeology. Okay, so I happen to think maybe part of him is innocent. But the truth is he's not removing or recanting things because it would make him undermine his own fame. That which gave him fame was this Rashad Atlantis bullcrap. And it's just not tenable. It never was tenable. That area was never under the surface of the ocean, the actual surface level, anytime in the last 100 million years. Sure, a mega tsunami might have swept over the area, but that's not the Atlantis story. The Atlantis story is a story of an island, and that story, that island that sank in the mid-Atlantic. And we have the likely culprit, which is the Azores. I've also heard that pronounced the Azores. But I can tell you this, if there is somebody controlling all this, I said that James Cameron's the only one who could get down there. And then he releases a show about finding Atlantis. The Azores is the one place he doesn't go. So you want a conspiracy, go look in the place where it should be. The Reshat Formation doesn't even literally hold water. I did hydrology studies. All this, the Chat GPT read the papers, confirmed, typed it up, and it's in the comment section under the video. It's just frustrating that so many people. He's literally removing my comments about Ben Davidson, and his viewers think I'm griefing because he's removing dissenting opinion. That's not science. If I release an opinion video or I release some music song on my channel and I remove criticism, I just don't like people's criticism. If I make a scientific assertion and I fail to defend that and I censor the people, I am not engaging in the scientific method. By removing comments, I gave specific information about things that Ben had done. And he removed the comments. Why? Because he recognizes me as the guy that has debunked him. And he wants to court Ben Davidson for his cult. That's a fact. That's just what's happening there. Millions of subs. They want to hang out with other people with millions of subs and form a little super friend thing, just like the Veritasium and Mark Rober's crew. They got a whole group of people that do mainstream cool engineering, cool stuff, and they're all getting tons of money. They're getting massive money. Hacksmith, who started this was the King of Random, who rest his soul, died in a paragliding accident. The King of Random started all that stuff. He's the first one to achieve mega notoriety, other than maybe Thunderfoot. But Thunderfoot is falling way off. And these guys are making tons of money. Well, it's obvious that Ben, Jimmy, these people, they want to have their own side version of that. And you look at Ben Davidson, Stefan commented that Ben said it might be possible for the gas giants to light up again. No, it's not possible, actually. The entire point of how they became the gas giants was the electrical death of Shamash. We have it in rock art and in history. They're not electrically lit up. They are electrical, but they're not electrically lit up because they were split electrically before. And so he's just stabbing in the dark. He doesn't know. He follows a lot of other people like Mr. Vogt, who, again, rest in peace, a man who came to a lot of wrong conclusions for the right reasons. And he's come to this idea of the micronova. The micronova is just not tenable. There's nothing in the history that suggests that. And all of the evidence is actually in support of the Shamashian theory. All right. That's me pulling into the clinic. So if you guys could talk for a second while I get unloaded.
Okay. How you doing, Andy?
Yeah, good, Nick.
Yeah.
Did you get that article I sent you, Nick, on them engines? No, obviously not.
No, I don't think I have. No, I'll have a look for it, Andy.
Have a look at your stuff. Yeah. It's interesting, actually.
Yeah, sure.
A bit of British ingenuity shut down by the Americans.
Oh dear.
So I think you only. Yeah, because I don't like diesel engines.
Oh right, I see. Yeah. Well, Yeah, well, we're actually burning wood from Canada now. I think there must be Prince Charles's personal forest that we're burning there for our energy. Because
the forest that we could save his. He would burn his.
Well, Rochdale, all the moorland above my old town, Rochdale, they're covering that with a wind farm now, the biggest you can get, and they all belong. Rochdale was actually sold. It's got an interesting history because it was the first place in Britain to be sold by an aristocrat to a corporation, and of course, as soon as that happened, you've got all the kids down the coal mines, working to death at 8-year-old. But anyway, Lord Byron actually was the landowner, and he sold the town 60,000 acres to fund his war in Turkey against the Ottomans for Greece, and the Industrial Revolution sparked up quite soon after that. But of course, the Napoleonic Wars took a big toll on the population. Not only that, of course, at the time you had Lord Wellington, fresh from his smashing Northern Ireland to pieces. He came back and set the cavalry off into Manchester city centre, massacred 120 protesting men, women and kids who were protesting for living pay, not the brutal starvation rates that they were on. The death rates were just absolutely massive around that time. I mean, I think my great-grandpa, he was the only survivor out of 8 kids. It was pretty savage. And it's just been a complete, from what I can see, a cycle. This cycle of oppression. Do anything, any kind of war to keep hold of the semblance of control. It's normally the bankers who are behind it all, as seems to be the case with all this lot in Ukraine, which is so dangerous. It's unbelief.
I mean, bankers are behind almost everything, really.
Yeah.
When you come down to it.
I mean, you've got this monolithic BlackRock, and with its 32 trillion quid's worth of investment that's sucking in just about all the small companies, and and dishing out these really weird membership rules, like you need to get another 50% black people in your company, or people of whatever ethnicity that you want to promote. It's just gone completely out of control. Like Trump said, that these globalist billionaires are using the Marxists as a hammer, just to inflict complete global control. To what end? I don't really know, because I think massive civilian destruction is part of the plan. It's looking increasingly clear to me that they actually want massive nuclear destruction. I don't know what the fallout is in terms of getting contracts. I don't know if I put that the right way. But these people are that sick beyond belief. They've probably got bunkers a mile underground or something stupid, and they're hoping to come out in 20 years and dominate what's left of anything, if there is anything left. But I mean, they push the buttons. They think everyone's bluffing all the time. You know, it's like a midget fighting a giant and thinking it's like that. It's like that night on Monty Python's and the Knights of the Holy Grail, who's chopped to bits, no legs, and he's still trying to have a fight. You know, that's what we're doing to Russia at the moment. We haven't got any army to send there. Well, the UK hasn't. You know, very few, and all our soldiers are already deployed all over Latvia, Estonia, etc. And in the meantime, we've got over a million, 1.75 million migrants coming to this country. There's already a housing crisis, and they're getting priority over the indigenous British people. So, and we've got another 4 or 5 years of this with this bloody crook Starmer who we've got in, who's just a blatant total liar, and he's a complete Marxist who works for the WEF, World Economic Forum. He's a complete oddball, sinister fucker as well, to be honest. And he'd probably like to put me in prison for those comments as well. But he's so corrupt, it's beyond belief. But anyway, I'm sure details of his crimes are going to be emerging pretty soon. Although, but these leaders'
like
image.
with Biden, they'll just cover it up or pardon each other. You know, that's the part that kills me.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case as well. Yeah, and of course you've got Boris Johnson going round still poking the bear, insisting that we've got to be fighting Russia. It's a little bit beyond me. We're sending billions and billions out there, and this place, this place is, oh dear me. Well, Wales is the country of Wales. They've actually got a 20-mile-an-hour road limit nationwide. It's absolutely destroyed all business. And this is because the Labour Party have been in Wales for about the last 10 years because they hate the Tories even more than the Northern English. That's who we've got. George Galloway from Rochdale. Well, he's in Rochdale now. His party's doing quite well. Farage, the Reform Party, he's just basically trying to take over the Tory party with all the Tory sort of people in it. He's got to be very careful, that he doesn't just turn into another wet, middle of the road, useless bunch of civil servants. Well, I don't think we'll get another. He's nowhere near another Trump anyway. I know that, but he's better than nothing, I suppose. Although the British,
is that necessarily true? I'm not so sure that that's true. I think sometimes it is better to have no government than any government, so long as that government is not doing what government's supposed to be doing, which is supporting the rights and will of the people.
Yeah. Well, they're certainly not interested in any of that. In this, I mean, they've locked up about, I think, a couple of thousand people for Facebook posts, and of course there wasn't any room in the prisons because it's just too full of criminal migrants. So they had to release a load of paedophiles to put these people in prison. Unbelievable. So these issues are more important to Starmer, like gay rights, paedophiles' rights, etc., than actually looking after anyone's safety or well-being. No one can really afford the rent here, even people with houses. if they don't pay their council tax, the council maybe I think we'd say £1,000. The council can put a distraining order on your property and force you to sell your house, rendering you homeless for the sake of £1,000. Even if your house is worth £100,000, they would rather do that and stick you out on the street. And then that goes to auction, and then BlackRock buy your house and then rent it back out to you for extortionate rates that you can't afford to pay. With big problems here, pal. I'm pretty glad, well, in some respects, I don't suppose I'll see 2050, but well, you never know. That'd be a remarkable kind of place. The change I've seen over my lifetime around here is quite incredible. But yeah, maybe it'll be different for the kids growing up now. Don't know. Not with these people in power. Worse and worse.
Well, human nature doesn't really much change. The question is, when people are doing well, do they engage themselves in activities that build society? Do they take the time, or do they, when they're doing, quote, well, but they're also not feeling like they're doing well, like this is the time we have, they just make excuses for why they don't need to get involved. And then they let the Hunter Biden type situations come to pass. And, these elites, it's not really a surprise that they get into muckety-muck. This has been studied. There are 2 excellent secret societies books from the 20th century. All this stuff was laid out. Bohemian Grove has been exposed. Alex Jones exposed it, and people have recorded film. Okay, so we know they get into muckety-muck. The difference is the will to do something now versus before. And now people are content to watch it happen somewhere else so long as they're not involved. And I get that, because it's just easier. When you're raising a family, you don't have a lot of time to go after, some prince or some king or some, Bill Gates level billionaire when they have all these resources. But people in this society have mixed up tolerance with acceptance. So we have something called freedom of speech in America. I can tolerate, for example, Jimmy or anyone else making bad science claims. But that doesn't mean I have to accept it and then say nothing. Sit down and shut up and go, oh, well, so long as we're all wink, wink, in agreement that the mainstream is bad, then it's okay. Or so long as we all agree that pedophilia is bad, then we've done our part. And that's not true. Human trafficking is still happening because the border was open and children were actively suffering. People who voted to support open borders specifically, I mean, I understand they're voting on a non-issue like abortions, a non-issue in America. It's already been settled. But they're voting anyways because they think that that's the issue. But the thing is, like, if you voted for an open border, you voted for children to get raped and women and kidnapping and human slavery and terrorism. That's what you voted for. That's the problem with acceptance. Tolerance is from the compassion. Acceptance is from the root of apathy. And apathy is the actual enemy of love. It's the actual opposite of love. Hate is not the opposite of love. Hate springs from love. Apathy is the true opposite of love. And you can't love your southern neighbors or your foreign compatriots, other Americans throughout the continents or whoever by accepting bad behavior, criminal behavior. And that's what we've done. We've turned tolerance in the West and liberality into an acceptance of that which is actually fundamentally evil. And that's no sermon. I'm not quoting Bible verses. It's just logic.
Well, Ramon, we've had a few interesting bits of things going on here, and I think a lot of it's a divergence on other bigger issues. But we recently had a bill, which was a disinformation bill. Now that never got up, so that's done for now. But it will reappear in the future in one form or another. Then we've recently had the bill go through, and you had both the Conservatives and the Labor Party do it together. So the crossbench had no say, and they gave 1 day for submissions so they could ram it all through. And that was that anyone under 16 in 12 months' time will not be allowed on any social media bar YouTube. They gave that an exemption. So Facebook and all them things are done for them. And of course, that means they'll find backdoor ways to get on it, which then basically you're teaching them to be criminals instead of teaching them how to use it more effectively. But there's a bigger issue there. I reckon if I had an ear of Elon Musk and that, was saying, that their views on it. So what happens is it's a $50 billion fine if they're caught with young people on their platforms.
Oh, yeah.
I reckon if I was social media companies, I'd say to the Australian government, don't worry, you better ban us because we don't want to be in your country. We're not going to do this. Now, this has all been linked to part of a plan, and the government tries to deny it, to bring in a digital ID for everybody. So with that digital ID, you'd be able to tell the media company that you're over 16. So that means anyone our age and that, Nick, we've got to prove that we're not, a child anymore. Well, how do you do that to a social media company? And they'll be wanting you to use this digital ID. Right?
Well, this creates that many issues. This website I'm creating. I was hoping sort of children would go on it. I know there's it's going to be a music thing predominantly. But I think to be able to get ID to make sure they're under 16, they're not under 16. And then if they say they're 16 and you let them on your side, even though it's totally innocent, you could be liable for massive fines.
That's correct.
So yeah, but I think Google already use some kind of IDing service, don't they? I know a lot of signs I can just sign on with my Google account, So yeah, I would hope that'd be sufficient.
You see, one way they use that is if you've ever used a payment system on it, it basically verifies that, like I know there are exceptions, but for the overwhelming majority, it would mean that you should be over, say, 16. But, the reasons they did for this just don't stack up. And it's part of this process where they're running these agendas, we're saving this and saving that. So they're trying to show that they care because of the backlash that's especially coming, and you see it all around the Western world from what happened during the bug. So all those governments now that were in power that locked people down, they're all gone. Right? Now, when you talk about Russia and Ukraine, I heard an interview that Zelensky did, and he's prepared to give up territory because he said that will be sorted out over the years diplomatically. I do think he will insist that he wants that Ukraine should have the opportunity to join NATO if NATO agrees. And basically he said, we can't continue this because we don't have the manpower to do it anymore. And then he sort of assumes Russia doesn't. That's why Russia Russia's got the North Koreans. I put to it that the little North Korean fella liked the idea to test his army to see if they're any good. I think they all shit their pants last week when Russia launched that missile that dropped all them warheads on that place, right? And I wouldn't be surprised. So I was listening to this bloke who does this reverse speech stuff, right? And it's interesting, some of that, how they interpret it. But the minister, Russian minister, like the equivalent of our ministers of defence and that, he was there and he reinterpreted that. And basically what they come up with was that on a Wednesday there will be a retaliation from the sea, right? And I think it was pointed at specifically at Britain. And of course, if you think about it, you've got France, Germany, they're all in line, and you've got US bases. So actually, I don't think they'd attack the US mainland. But if it continues, I wouldn't mind betting that in those places they start getting whacked by some of these missiles which are dropping multiple warheads. So yeah, so no, I think a lot of them very much will, one way or the other, Trump's saying it's going to finish and he will do it. I think we'll see a different Trump than what we've seen last time, and perhaps Biden did him a favour cheating and winning. You know, so yeah, well, time will tell, won't it?
Yeah.
That's my take on that. With
I mean,
Trump,
to be honest, I was just listening to Trump's latest speech, and he's just basically saying this deep state has got to go. This war machine has got to be stopped, and we haven't got long to do it. We really haven't.
Yep.
Dangerous. I mean, the skies are pretty clear here today. There's no aircraft around at all today. There's normally one or two things bobbing around, but nothing at all today. So I think everyone's on pretty well high alert, probably.
And if Ramon's listening, I'd ask Ramon, because he's closer to it than we are. Like, where does he see, like where it's going to head? Because you do have are the Republicans in both houses going to actually have the testosterone to stand up and stand behind him, or are they going to splinter because they'll be worried about midterm elections, and donors and all that stuff? That's the big thing I see. That's his biggest problem is, will the Republicans in both houses stand their ground and support him, or will they get weak-kneed? Yeah,
he's got a massive task ahead of him. He really has. It seems like.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was still muted. Was talking. The difficulty is this, fellas. I've been working on change theory and how to bring it to be more like psychohistory's ideal as a MIMS, right? But the truth is that we don't have enough information about the nonlinear mathematics in the universe, the fractal and the chiral, to actually understand the tug and pull of fate and destiny against the changes and chaos and causation. We don't really know. So Trump has been the Teflon Don his whole life. He's been in the zone. He might be on a heaven-sent mission, which might trump literally every form of the changes that tends. But right now, the tendency is, of course, that energy of the 20th century, of the rational mid-schedule, is totally, falling apart. and is being replaced by a very, I don't know how you say, just an irrational world. And in that irrational world, Republicans, for the sake of power, will do things that hurt their own positions and what they say they stand for. They just will. It's a sad thing. It's a sad thing to say, but I don't see that force changing. The question is, can he overcome that? He's done a remarkable job so far, but in mathematics, we have the gambler's ruin. You can't base future events solely upon past trends. Past trends are an indication of likelihood, but they aren't an indication of the future. Or the stock market would be easy to know. It's just we don't know. And predicting the future, I'm not going to pull a Ben Davidson and say that I know something like the Earth is going to flip, the United States is going to collapse. I don't know that. When in the 2009, 2010, when I drew the curves, and these curves were all crossing, and there were upward pressure and downward pressure, I could sense that. But the things that I used to draw those curves between 2019 and 2024 were none of them were plague. They were things like peak oil and inflation, but none of them had to do, like, there wasn't crypto, wasn't on there. The pedophile elite thing and the whole Epstein thing, that wasn't on there. I wasn't worried about comets, and I hadn't thought about any eclipses. So the information was in my soul, but I didn't know what was happening. I just knew that the crossing points were at their maximum between 2021 and 2023. For all we can tell, that was just my personal life giving me the indication, and all that was synchronized up with grander events. But we don't know. More crossing points could be happening that I am completely unaware of. The changes are not well known, not well studied. I'm busy memsulating literally as we speak, new ones. It takes time, but the AI is finally doing a good job. It's leveraging previous work that it had done in naming them and memsulating them from the 8 laws and from the Chinese itself into new names for the 64. But it didn't have the ability to actually go through. Now it's going through sequentially, and it's following a standard procedure. Then those have to be tested. Does the new copy really work as a book of changes? Because only if it works is it any kind of value by taking it out of the Chinese culture and putting it into the Western civilization. So all that's ongoing. We really just don't know. I know the changes are against the Teflon Don, but that doesn't mean that he'll lose. I honestly couldn't tell you. My suspicion is that we will see a lot of exposed corruption very, very soon. And then the ineffectualness to be able to do anything about it will probably lead to civil strife. That's what my guess is. Here and in the rest of the former United Kingdom as well.
Yeah. That's my only sort of thing is listening to him. He's a totally different to his first term. Like I just said, Ramon. One way or the other, Biden did him a favour, giving him that time out, because it now looks like he's been able to readdress everything with the knowledge that he now has. And look, you will hear the mainstream press bagging some of his picks, but no one's picks are perfect. So it's the overall picture that you've got to look at. And maybe a lot of what he's talked in his campaign will make not only the US, but the rest of the world have a look and start wanting to improve things and develop better things and all that, instead of this going for the bottom all the time. So that's just my view on it. Yeah. So, but right, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the whole socio-economic fabric of the world is changing. Really, you've got all these. There's all the polarization happening with the BRICS nations and the West, and until this can be kind of resolved, I think interestingly, Russia's view of the world was that we've got to have these sort of we've got these different cultural centres that they've got to where you've got to sort of celebrate that cultural identity, and maybe those are entities which you could call a country because they share the same kind of social beliefs sometimes, I guess. Maybe they've got some areas, common areas of commerce, but these are defined and separate, but can interact peacefully, hopefully, and all contribute to a safe world. But for some reason, we've always got to be in this Cold War. I mean, when we seem to have got over this massive problem with Russia 20 years ago, but it's all been started up again for the people who really like the money. They've made a real lot of money at it, and the damage they'll get away with the money. They probably sat underground with it all right now, but it's. There's millions of people's lives at stake. I mean, there are economies of countries that are going down the tubes. Food supply is going to be it's going to get difficult. This is an island nation, and all our basically, if you grow pigs and on a farm, Jeremy Clarkson was saying that by the time your pig meat ends up 80p a kilo, that it goes to the shops at. So you can make sausages with it, 80p a kilo. But if you buy imported pig meat, you'll get it for 15 a kilo. So it's just like, how can our farmers compete on a completely rigged international market? And consequently, there's no animals on the farms because there's no profit in it, and we're no longer food. We're no longer independent for food or energy or.
Well, Nick, how's that new tax they're going to bring in, that death duties tax? Is that going to make it that what presently is family type farms get gobbled up by the corporations?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that
as soon as you can?
When you look at the route, farmer go for bringing that tax in, because the Conservatives ran up all this debt. Then I see where in other areas England's actually reducing their debt because of a few things that are going on. It's really not needed. But this is more of this old thing about, so instead of taking the land like the Soviets did for the state, you're taking the land for the corporation, and then they write up all these fancy policies that are meant to mean a lot of things but mean total nothing at the end of it. They just do it to hide behind and do what they want. So I think you're in for, and we're having the same issues here, and I think the US is too, of the changeover to the next generation of these industries such as farming, and who's going to control them. So they want to have bureaucratic control over everything. And I think at the end of it, you're right. There'll be a crunch. There'll be a period where people will struggle to get good food.
It just doesn't work. I mean, a bureaucrat can't produce food like a farmer, but they think they can. A bureaucrat doesn't know how to teach children. They're not educated to do that, but they think they can. There are so many areas of life where you've got a bureaucrat with the power of life and death over people, just about.
That's right. That's right.
and
now
what,
ultimate,
how are they qualified to do that?
And now they've got the ultimate, and they have drones to fly over and specifically see what everything, and then make an interpretation of it. So once they had to actually walk onto your place to actually see and have reason, now they just fly a drone over, and take photos and, you must have cut that tree down, did you, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the other problem, so they have all these privacy laws, but I think it's just a front,
Yeah, well, I mean, they conveniently ignore laws, don't they? If it gets in the way of their little operations, it's there are some areas of law that are just conveniently ignored, and the police won't enforce them, and the courts won't enforce. I mean, our common law is the highest law in this country, but our courts won't recognise that, because we're subject to a lower level of the law, admiralty law. So, and basically, that's what these people sat in Parliament, just knocking out millions and millions of repressive admiralty laws. Absolutely ridiculous situation. And again, these politicians, they've got no life skills apart from being absolutely weaselly, horrible sort of politicians from university, planted into via the World Economic Forum into these political parties that are guaranteed to get in. And they're not expert on any field apart from lying and thieving and corruption and chains of, most of them are lawyers now, aren't they? In the House of Commons, most of them come in from the law, legal background now.
Yeah, we've got the same. Yep.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah.
I think Ramon agree that's the same issue in the US. That there's too many from the legal side of it involved in the Parliament. Yeah. But I suppose, Dick, you just got to try and do our own thing. And so out here, you have years like we've had where you have very little rain. They declare it a drought and they offer these grants for different things.
Yeah.
You've got to give them all these income statements and tax returns and all that. But they can't normally get, say, the Agriculture Department. And it's just a way of collecting data. And then most of the people who put in for these grants get knocked back. They don't give them their data back. So, again, it's just a way of harvesting data to see who's doing what.
Well, exactly. They'll count every tree on your property and identify every plant on your property. See if you've made any roads anywhere or tracks anywhere. If you're getting water out anywhere, anything that they can. Change of land use. You're subject to a tax. That's what they're after.
Yep.
You're not allowed to keep chickens, and we spotted 5 chickens on your land. Therefore, we're going to have to destroy all your livestock to stop the foot and mouth infection. Yeah. Hopefully it'll change. I mean, hopefully we can get systems back where we've got local economies going again, and all these globalists can go and do their own global thing somewhere else. I think I mean, just this place where I am, this sound, I can imagine the bustle of it when this lot was built 100 years ago, 150 years ago. You know, it was vibrant. The amount of work around here, the tonnage of stuff moving through here, everyone busy, everything clean, beautiful parks, you know.
But everyone seemed to have an objective, if you get what I mean, Nick. But there doesn't seem to be an objective anymore. Like
no,
you see things that were done in that time period you're talking, that was all done by, a lot of that work was all done by hand. Didn't have the machines they've got now, and everybody seemed to pitch in to do it, and there was nowhere near the population there is today. Yet they seem to be able to achieve so much more than we're achieving today with all the equipment.
Yeah,
You know?
but the thing is, and I heard this is a fact. There's a cycle. There's a kind of a cycle of building that I think Rockefeller was stuck with. I think it was something like a 63 years cycle, where the asphalt's out of the labour market, and you can afford to flood the place with cheap labour, and that's of course when they built the Empire State Building. So he waits before he does an investment to these 60-year cycles, and then he can get a load of starving men to work for him for nothing, just about, you know. That's how it seems to go.
And that's an interesting. I've had a theory on that way. I just look around here and, you know, like knowing things that you read and pick up about different areas. That seems to be pretty correct, because most of our initial rail system, which was built very, very well, which is still operational, and you have a look at your own, with those stone bridges and that, they were all built with basically some form of unpaid labour, whether it was a convict or someone that was meant to be in jail or someone that was a traded slave. But they were all built with very low cost of labour. And now they're trying to find ways now. So then we got mechanised, but now they're trying to find a way of creating the next round of relatively low cost labour, because it does appear that if you're paying properly for your labour, it's very difficult to build a lot of stuff without creating a huge inflationary event eventually.
Yeah, and I think with the advent of AI, I think that's going to absolutely rip through a lot of the more middle class jobs. I think it's absolutely going to transform the most so-called expert jobs. But we're always going to need people to push brushes or carry shit around for rich people, you know. That's basically going to be people's primary function. Pyramid slavery. Yeah.
Well, at the moment, I think what they use to create that is currency. So you devalue someone's currency so their labour on paper becomes very cheap.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
then,
so.
You know, like
playing with all these tricks here.
Now, even though our currencies are shit, they are better than a lot of the alternatives. So we can import people from them alternative countries to do a lot of that work. And then when it goes to shit, they just go home. But, you know, they take home with them some value from whatever's going on. You know, we have a lot out here from a certain country now driving trucks, right? And they are pretty hopeless. And I was even told tonight where they don't even stop to go to the loo. You know, you got your, you know, how you got the rubber thing around the gearbox, stop that, right?
Oh, yeah.
They take them off. They take them off, and then of course you got a hole between the gear stick and the gearbox, and they use that as glue. And now it's coming to a problem because when mechanics go to service their trucks and find it, they turn around and say, we're not going to work on it, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
It's coming to a head now, those sort of things. Yeah. But that's how bad it's got here. And it's not being imposed on them, they're imposing it on themselves. So greed with them classes of, you know, your lower middle class, the wannabes, they're creating the rod for their own backs.
Yeah, quick profit. They'll use any labour they can if it's cheaper than the going rate. I mean, I know plasterers around here. They'll get a team of Romanians over when he's a millionaire, but if he gets a big job, he'll just get a team of them, 5 of them over for 3 months, put them up in a room, pay them half the wages they get over here, but they go on with money.
That's right.
He'd rather do that than employ local people.
Yeah, but to them, what they take home with them often allows them to educate their kids and all that so much better.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Although we look at it as poor, bad, actually for those people, they go back and it allows them to educate their kids and that, and then over a period of time, they become more wealthy, if you get what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, Nick, it's time to marching on here. I might have to check out on you.
Yeah, but it's getting late. It's getting late at your end, Andy, I think. Nice to speak to you, mate.